I go to a lot of different conferences, a lot of different events, and one of the stats that stood out recently to me from when I went to last week was 90% of the data in the world currently was created in the last 2 years. And that's kind of a glimpse at the exponential growth that data is seeing on the market right now. That's not a trend that's going to slow down at any time. IDC predicts that there's going to be a tenfold increase in the amount of data in the world in the next couple of years. So we really need to be prepared for that. One of the methods that companies need to start looking towards that is a top-down, complete organizational rethink of how they're going to handle this data. Data growth is always going to happen. There's always going to be more people. There's always going to be more companies, more devices, and that's kind of a naturally expected growth. However, there's also multiple different vectors within the same products that we use every day that are creating brand new databases of data, brand new types of data every single day. In addition to that, of course, you also have new technologies. Take self-driving cars as an example. The amount of sensors that they have, the amount of data that, for example, Google collects in their 900,000 miles of driving self-driving cars is immense. So this does filter down to everyday companies. This does filter down to companies in this region. And especially with the high demand for people wanting, for example, applications for banking, for government, for utilities, they need to be able to provide this data in an easily accessible and sensible format to their customers. So it's going to affect everyone. This data analysis and data mining, right, is number one skill in demand, and that exactly reflects the amount of data that's being produced, basically. In an organization, this needs to be top-down. There's no one person in an organization. There's no one company they can outsource it to that can manage everything for them. And that's purely because it's different for every single company. So, each company has a different market that they operate in, a different customer base, different target base. They also have a massive range of applications that they use, and each of these applications is used in a completely different method. So they need to have someone within the organization to drive this and to lead this. For example, the new role of CDO, which Gartner predicts 90% of companies are going to have, again, in the next couple of years. But this needs to be a top-down change. We work with the entire data stack, all the way from the hardware in which the data actually sits, all different types of hardware that it supports, the infrastructure around it, making sure this data is available, making sure if something goes wrong that the data is backed up and we're able to retain that information. And probably very importantly nowadays is to actually classify and segregate this data between useful data and non-useful data. I don't want to say useless data, because we don't know if this data is going to be useful in the future for a different application. And companies usually don't have the option of getting rid of non-useful data because of basic auditing legal requirements. But this segregation is important because there's a cost associated with keeping data. Just like there's a cost associated with keeping papers in a warehouse, there's a cost associated with keeping data on drives. And to make sure that's used effectively and you have the right type of solution for the right type of data, hot or cold, that's where we fit in. On top of that, we also work on data availability. So data by itself is useless. I mean, code is useless by itself. It needs to have an application to read it. And we work with multiple different vendors to ensure that we have application monitoring and application availability. So, I don't want to get too technical, but to ensure that both end users and company users are able to access this data in a useful format at all times.